can't see the rest of the road in front of you, you could hear the yelping of dog number 2, growing louder and louder. It seemed she was chasing a dump truck carrying her load of dirt fill to the new housing development at the top of Reeds Gap Road. Before we knew it, Jerry, our race car, and I were flying through the air, yelling words we didn't quite have definitions for, staring at both the angry driver of the dump truck and the big yellow lap chasing him. I landed with a hard thud in the front yard of the Jenkins house, while Jerry landed in a small pond about 12 feet away. The pond had just enough water in it to keep Jerry from having any major damage. As for me, let's just say I had a new source of air conditioning in my only pair of blue jeans. And as for old number 43, a race car, she'd run her last race for sure. Now it was a matter of whether or not we could lever back up the hill fast enough to salvage the bicycle pieces to put Jerry's sister's bike back together again. So what lessons can we possibly learn from this improbable but possibly true tale of life in Connecticut in the early 70s? Well, there's 3 main lessons I'd offer up that I think are relevant today. First, don't be afraid to dream, and to then put into action a plan to realize your dreams. The only thing holding us back is ourselves. That hill, from in front of the Anderson's house on Walnut Lane, down past the turn onto Reeds Gap, straight out to Route 17 was a big hill, maybe 300 feet vertically and close to 3/4 of a mile in length. While we were just kids, we had a dream of what it would be like to drive like Richard Petty, and by golly, we did it. And right now, and one of the first great achievements in your lives, you have a journey in front of you much like that hill, with changes in elevation, twists, turns, dogs, trucks, and ponds. There will always be obstacles regardless of your dream. So why not dream? Why not envision creating your own company or traveling the world in service to others or taking a trip to Mars? One thing we know for sure, if you don't persist in pursuing your dreams, no one else will for you. The second lesson learned is about teamwork. We all have talents, sometimes hidden, sometimes obvious, that make us collectively stronger. My friend Jerry was the mechanical one. He was, and is, a very clever person who constantly amazes me. Not only could he disassemble his sister's bike, but he could build a race car, old 43 that nearly got us to Route 17. Jerry only has a high school education. He floated around a few years after high school working as a carpenter, building houses, and as a lumberjack cutting trees. In his late 20s, he called me asking for advice as to whether or not he should take a job making up to 100 phone calls a day selling electronic components to manufacturers. He called me because in addition to having gotten an electrical engineering degree, I had good sales experience, so I had some expertise that he did not have. I told him, no way, he should not take the job. It was an inglorious job, very hard work, lots of rejection, the pay would not be good. He wisely ignored me and took the job anyways. It turns out Jerry also has a gift for gab. He can really develop strong relationships over the phone. And today, 25 years later, in the job and career I advised him not to take, he's a national sales manager for a large company with tremendous respect in his industry and great financial reward. We all have talents. Sometimes we have to be challenged or take on the challenge of doing something we're told we shouldn't do to find it. And when on our own, sometimes we don't have the right talents. We either need to develop them or find somebody who does. Usually, as a member of a team, we find that our weaknesses don't really matter, that the sum of the parts of the strengths of the team as a whole leads to success. The true challenge is often to identify the strengths we each have and to bring them together in pursuit of a common dream. The third thing I learned about is failure. Failure leads to learning, so don't be afraid to fail. If you measure the success of our trip on the old race car by whether or not we reached Route 17, then clearly we failed. Of course, if you thought our goal was to build a race car, then you might not consider our venture a failure. I have no doubt that if we had persisted, we would have eventually gotten that old number 43 all the way to Route 17. And when I sit back and reflect on the story, I know that we learned a lot in the process about what we are capable of achieving when we set our minds to it. Was it painful? Absolutely. The bruises and bumps, not to mention the terrific scolding we got from Jerry's sister, mom, and dad, caused us a great deal of physical pain and emotional anguish. But we learned a lot of things from mechanics to aerodynamics, from the importance of vision